A military dog halted at the entrance to the helicopter, declining to board even with direct orders and the presence of nearby enemy forces. His handler was confronted with a difficult decision: leave his faithful companion or disregard instructions and jeopardize the safety of everyone. However, when they eventually determined what the dog had sensed within the aircraft, it sent a wave of apprehension through the group. If they had departed according to schedule, none of them would have survived. Curious to learn the reason? Please subscribe and leave a comment indicating your location. Now let's begin. The night air hung thick with tension as Staff Sergeant Mike Connors pressed his back against the stone wall of the compound, night vision goggles revealing the green-hued landscape of the remote village. Beside him, Sergeant Taylor checked his weapon, a nervous habit that had become familiar during their months of deployments together. "Tell me again why we're doing this discreetly?" Taylor murmured, observing the shadows. "Because officially we shouldn't be 10 kilometers within this area," Mike responded. He was focused on both their discussion and the compound's interior, where they'd been documenting weapons caches for the past hour. Headquarters requires plausible deniability should complications arise. Rex, Mike's Belgian Malinois partner, was positioned between them, remaining watchful even after having traversed 12 miles of challenging ground from their insertion point. The dog's ears reacted to every noise, his strong frame holding restrained power. "Time to move," Mike stated, glancing at his watch. "We've obtained what we were looking for." They quietly advanced through the darkness towards the eastern wall, employing their well-rehearsed stealth. Their extraction helicopter would not be ready for another 2 hours, at a landing zone 5 miles from their position. That's when everything went wrong. The spotlight caught them halfway across the open space, followed by shouted commands in a language neither of them spoke. Rex's low growl served as the only warning before gunfire erupted from the guard tower. "Go!" Mike shouted, returning fire as Taylor sprinted for cover. The following moments descended into chaos, muzzle flashes briefly lighting the darkness, the distinct sound of AK-47 fire, and the heavy sound of boots as guards reacted to the alarm. They moved towards the perimeter, Rex staying near Mike's side, sometimes quickly moving forward to create space between the pursuers and the retreating Americans. Taylor was injured just as they reached the outer wall, a bullet passing through his right thigh. "I'm hit," he gasped, falling against the ground, blood already soaking through his tactical pants. Mike pulled him behind rocks as more bullets flew overhead. Their location was exposed, their initial exfil plan ruined, and the closest Allied forces were over 30 miles away. "Command, this is Bravo 6, Mike spoke into his comms. "Mission compromised, 1 wounded and under fire. Request immediate extraction at secondary LZ." The crackling response confirmed his concerns. "Negative, Bravo 6. The closest available unit is 40 minutes away. Can you avoid detection and move to the rally point?" Mike observed Taylor's pale expression, then glanced at Rex, who remained vigilant at the edge of the area, attentive and alert, perceiving a threat the humans did not. "Roger that," Mike responded. "Heading to the rally point. We require medical assistance." He addressed Rex, giving the quiet instruction that would decide their survival. "Locate an escape route, boy." Rex proceeded purposefully, guiding them away from the compound, through a ravine not shown on their tactical maps. The dog stopped intermittently, ears swiveling to pick up sounds beyond human perception, before selecting routes that kept them hidden from the search parties scouring the hills. "Your dog is remarkable," Taylor said, struggling through gritted teeth, as Mike partially carried him across a rocky streambed. The improvised tourniquet had lessened the bleeding, but Taylor's complexion grew paler with each minute. How could he know where to go? Rex was chosen for missions such as this, Mike explained, thankful for the dialogue that helped keep Taylor conscious. Belgian Malinois possess remarkable situational awareness. He is analyzing terrain, registering sensory input, listening for dangers, processing all of it faster than any technology we have. They stopped as Mike examined Taylor's wound. The projectile had exited cleanly, yet the hemorrhage was substantial. Taylor would be unable to traverse any significant distance without support. "Command, this is Bravo 6, Mike transmitted via comms. Hostile forces remained in pursuit. Sergeant Taylor's state was worsening. Request for extraction prioritization was initiated. The radio emitted static. Bravo 6, this is command. A friendly helicopter was rerouted to your location. Estimated time of arrival, 25 minutes at coordinates Delta 3. Mike consulted his navigation device. Delta 3 remained 3 kilometers distant, a manageable distance ordinarily, but with Taylor's injury and enemy patrols active in the vicinity, reaching it would be precarious. We will arrive, he told Taylor, although uncertainty likely reflected in his gaze. Simply abandon me, Taylor said feebly. I am only an impediment. That is not occurring, Mike stated resolutely. We all return or no one does. Rex abruptly stiffened, fur bristling as he focused on the darkness behind them. Mike swiftly extinguished their tactical light, drawing Taylor further into the darkness. Moments later, a search group passed within 30 meters of where they were, the enemy soldiers illuminating the area with flashlights. Continuing onward, the sound of rotor blades reached them distantly. Rex increased his speed, indicating they were approaching their target. The dog led them through a final stretch of dense brush before the terrain opened, revealing a small clearing nestled between hills, their designated landing zone. We made it, Mike said, assisting Taylor, whose body was becoming increasingly weak. Just a little further. The clearing was scarcely large enough to accommodate a helicopter. Mike helped Taylor to lie down behind some boulders, examining his wound again. The bleeding had lessened, but Taylor's skin felt cold and clammy, and his eyes were having difficulty focusing. Stay with me, man, Mike encouraged. The helicopter is nearly here. Rex moved to the edge of their cover, his posture tense as he surveyed the surroundings. In the distance, the characteristic sound of helicopter rotors became increasingly noticeable. Command, this is Bravo 6 at extraction point, Mike reported. Be advised, enemy forces remain in the area. Approach with caution. Roger, Bravo 6. Black Hawk is 2 minutes out. Pop smoke when you have visual. The helicopter emerged as a dark shape against the night sky. The lights dimmed as they initiated a tactical maneuver. Mike deployed a smoke canister, and the Black Hawk descended swiftly, dust kicked up by the rotor blades. The side door opened, and Captain Riley, the pilot, made an urgent hand gesture for them to enter. Move it, Riley yelled above the engine's roar. I'm detecting multiple heat signatures approaching from the south. Mike helped Taylor to his feet, partially pulling him towards the helicopter. Rex moved in front of them, his ears perked and attentive to any danger. Riley called out, her expression tense, "Get in now. We've got company coming." 20 yards from the helicopter, Taylor's legs gave out. Mike adjusted his grip, now practically carrying his teammate, as they closed the final distance to safety. Just as they reached the boarding ramp, Rex abruptly stopped. The change in the dog's demeanor was dramatic. His body stiffened, ears flat against his head, eyes fixed on the helicopter. As Mike issued the order to board, Rex retreated, letting out a quiet growl Mike hadn't experienced except during training. Rex, come, Mike instructed. The dog, however, remained in place, obstructing access to the helicopter. What's the delay? Riley called out, her gaze shifting between her instruments and the landscape. We need to be airborne immediately. Taylor leaned against Mike, appearing to be barely aware of his surroundings. What's the issue with the dog? Mike looked at Rex, puzzled. Over 3 years of operations, encompassing numerous helicopter insertions and extractions, Rex had consistently followed commands. The dog's training was flawless, his obedience complete until now. Something's wrong, Mike muttered. He wouldn't act like this without a reason. We don't have time for this, Riley called out. Enemy forces are less than a click away and closing. Mike observed Rex's rigid posture, then looked to the helicopter, and finally to Taylor's pale face. Each second they remained exposed, their danger grew. However, Rex's actions triggered a warning he couldn't dismiss. The dog wasn't simply refusing to enter. He was actively blocking their approach to the aircraft. Rex, heel, Mike commanded again, his tone more insistent. The dog remained steadfast, his eyes fixed on the helicopter, his body rigid with what Mike identified as an alert posture, not fear. What the hell is going on? Riley shouted above the rotor noise. Less than 2 minutes remained before potential compromise. Mike's thoughts accelerated. Rex, trained to identify explosives, weapons, and other dangers, was hesitant to approach the helicopter. Mike reported a possible threat to the aircraft and instructed Taylor to descend. Rex is detecting something, he said. Riley's face changed from impatience to worry. My pre-flight checks were clean. There's nothing wrong with this bird, I stated. The radio on Mike's tactical vest emitted static. Bravo 6, this is command. Satellite indicates multiple hostiles are moving towards your location. Evacuate immediately. Repeat, evacuate immediately. Taylor's head rested against Mike's shoulder, his voice a whisper. The dog is agitated. Abandon him. That's not happening, Mike responded resolutely. The Malinois wasn't demonstrating general fear. It was exhibiting a specific alert response, the type it had been trained to show when detecting a threat. Command is ordering immediate extraction, Riley announced. Fuel is being consumed while we wait. A decision is needed, Sergeant. Mike was familiar with the established procedures. The mission held the highest priority. Taylor's life was critically important. The predefined procedure for operations under duress was unambiguous. The extraction must be completed at any cost. However, Rex had never been incorrect. I require 1 minute, Mike said to Riley. We cannot afford a minute, Riley responded. Enemy combatants are closing in from the south and west. If we do not launch immediately, we will all be eliminated or taken prisoner. The radio emitted a burst of static, followed by the voice of Colonel Westmore, the operation commander. Staff Sergeant Connors, this is a direct order. Board that helicopter immediately. Mike paused, wrestling with his sense of obligation and the intuition that had protected him during 3 deployments. Sir, my K9 is signaling a possible danger to the aircraft. I request authorization to examine the area before boarding. Colonel Westmore responded, Negative, Sergeant. An unmanned enemy drone is approaching your location in under 2 minutes. You are out of time. Abandon the dog if needed. Leave that stupid fucking dog and get on the chopper. That's an order, Connors. Westmore's voice crackled through the static. Something broke inside Mike at those words. 3 years together, dozens of missions, countless lives saved, including his own. Rex wasn't equipment, he was his partner. He's not just a dog, Mike replied, his voice firm, and he's indicating a problem with the aircraft. Are you jeopardizing this entire operation because of an animal? Westmore's voice boomed over the radio. That helicopter is the only resource available in the area. Miss this extraction and there won't be a second chance. Taylor's breathing had become shallow. His skin was turning a gray color that Mike had seen countless times from battlefield injuries. Immediate medical assistance was crucial. Without it, he wouldn't survive. Riley had deactivated the main rotors to preserve fuel. The helicopter remained motionless in the clearing while she observed her instruments. Command wants us to abort, she relayed to Mike. Orders are to take off in 30 seconds, with or without you. Mike remained steadfast, Rex still positioned between them and the helicopter, his focus unbroken. Years of battlefield experience had instilled in Mike a single, vital understanding. In critical situations, instinct takes precedence over instructions. If you proceed without us, the mission is compromised, Mike relayed to Riley. Taylor possesses the crucial intelligence. Should he be captured or killed, all that we've endangered our lives for will be lost. Riley's face displayed a transition from frustration to doubt. Command is threatening to permanently restrict my operations if I disregard instructions. My professional standing is at stake. So is mine, Mike responded. Rex is the top detection dog in the regiment. If he indicates a problem with that helicopter, there is a problem. The radio emitted static again, Westmore's voice now laced with anger. Captain Riley, you are instructed to take off immediately. Abandon Connors and the wounded if they are unwilling to board. That is a direct order. Following a moment of suspense, Riley removed her headset and exited the helicopter. Colonel Westmore, she said, speaking directly into the radio, this is Captain Riley. I will look into the K9's alert and will report back. Without waiting for a reply, She turned off the radio, cutting off Westmore's objection. You've just signed your own discharge papers, Mike said softly. Riley shrugged. Perhaps, but I've observed these dogs operate previously. If yours is this certain, it would be unwise not to verify. Riley tossed her flight helmet into the cockpit and moved forward cautiously, pausing a short distance from where Rex kept his alert position. What is he trained to detect? She asked. Explosives, weapons, chemical agents, Mike replied. But he's also cross-trained for mechanical anomalies. Dogs can detect subtle changes in machinery that instruments miss. Riley's professional skepticism conflicted with her pilot's instinct for caution. I performed a complete pre-flight check before takeoff. All systems were nominal. Mike nodded toward Rex. He disagrees. A moan from Taylor brought their attention back to her. The wounded soldier's condition was worsening rapidly, his face now ashen. We need to get him treatment sooner, he won't make it, Mike stated urgently. Riley looked back at the helicopter, then surveyed the surrounding terrain where enemy forces were approaching. I'm giving this 5 minutes, she decided. If we don't find anything by then, we fly. Dog or no dog. Deal, Mike agreed quickly. Rex, find it. The command freed the Malinois from his blocking position. Rather than entering the helicopter, Rex commenced a careful sweep around the aircraft, his nose working with focus as he detected something undetectable to the humans. Rex's concentration grew stronger on the port side close to the engine housing. His posture altered slightly, ears pointing forward, tail rigid, movements more precise. He's nearing something, he communicated to Riley. This is the way he acts when he's pinpointing a target. Riley observed with increasing worry as Rex stopped under the main rotor assembly, his nose directed upward towards the engine housing. The dog glanced back at Mike, then looked again at the engine, his stance now stiff with alertness. He's found something, Mike confirmed. It's inside the engine compartment. Riley paused briefly before deciding. I need to check it, she stated, climbing onto the helicopter skid to reach the maintenance panel. Should a mechanical problem be significant enough for your dog to identify, I require notification prior to takeoff. As she reached for the access panel, a distant crack resonated across the clearing, a rifle shot from the advancing enemy forces. They've located us, Mike warned, drawing his sidearm. We're out of time. Riley's expression became resolute as she operated the latches on the access panel. Then let's hope your dog is correct and we can repair whatever he's found in the next 3 minutes. The maintenance panel creaked open, exposing the intricate network of fuel lines and hydraulic controls. Riley directed her tactical flashlight into the space, carefully examining the parts. Report, Riley, Mike called out to her. What's your assessment? Riley's features shifted as her light caught something at the back of the compartment. I'm seeing a hairline fracture in the main fuel feed line, she stated, her voice strained. Fuel was leaking onto the hot section housing. How bad? Mike asked. Riley moved to get a better view with her light. The crack was severe enough that flight vibrations would have widened it within minutes once cruising altitude was reached. She didn't complete the sentence, but her concerned expression conveyed the gravity of the situation. Catastrophic failure, Mike asked directly. Riley confirmed. Mid-air fuel line rupture feeding directly onto superheated engine components. Best case, emergency landing in hostile territory. The most severe possibility is fire and explosion, Mike determined. This appears to be damage caused by temperature changes, she stated. The sandstorms allow fine particles to spread everywhere, particularly affecting engine parts. A gunshot sounded nearer now, followed by shouts echoing in the distance. Can you repair it? Mike asked urgently. Riley hesitated, biting her lip. Perhaps. I possess a field repair kit, but it's intended for hydraulic lines, not fuel feeds. It might last long enough to get us back to base, but I can't guarantee it. The dog's ears suddenly perked up, his focus directed towards the ridge line where shadows moved against the night sky. They're getting closer, Mike warned. Whatever you're going to do it quickly. Riley went to the cockpit, returning with a compact repair kit. I need 5 minutes, she said, climbing back up to the engine compartment. Maybe less if your dog's observation saves us from having to troubleshoot. Mike gently scratched Rex behind the ears. Good boy, he murmured, the best boy. Riley worked with practiced efficiency, her fingers moving deftly despite the awkward angle and poor lighting. The specialized epoxy compound she applied needed to create a temporary seal strong enough to withstand the pressure of flight. "This repair won't pass any inspection," she muttered, wrapping a reinforcing mesh around the crack. "But it might get us home." Mike stood at the perimeter, rifle ready as he surveyed the advancing hillside. The enemy fighters were moving steadily closer, utilizing the terrain for cover. "How much longer?" he inquired of Riley. "Almost there," she responded, not looking up from her task. "The compound needs another 60 seconds to set properly before I can pressurize the system." Rex abruptly froze, his focus fixed on the eastern approach to the clearing. A low growl resonated in his chest. Mike quickly noticed the alteration in behavior. "They're closer than we thought," he murmured to Riley. "Rex has them." The dog's ears were pressed against his head, his body tense. Mike lifted his rifle, peering through the tactical scope to survey the area Rex was fixated on. There, a brief movement against the rocks. 2 individuals, potentially 3, were moving in a flanking maneuver as the primary force advanced from the west. "Riley," Mike called quietly, his voice filled with urgency. "Enemy contacts are approaching from behind, less than 100 meters and closing rapidly. We must depart immediately." Riley completed the last application of sealant, her actions swift but accurate. She stated, 30 more seconds are needed for the minimum curing time, as she already began closing the access panel. A shorter time would risk the patch failing during takeoff. "Rex," Mike instructed quietly, "protect Taylor." The Malinois instantly moved to position himself guardedly next to the unconscious soldier. Mike established a defensive posture, rifle firmly against his shoulder. The initial muzzle flash appeared on the eastern ridge. A rifle shot followed, accompanied by the sound of a bullet passing above. Mike fired in measured bursts, prioritizing suppression over attempts to hit targets obscured by distance. Under fire, he called out as additional shots echoed from several locations. 10 seconds, Riley responded, noting the helicopter's rotors initiating their startup sequence. Rex emitted a sharp bark, signaling movement from another direction. Mike turned, observing 3 more fighters advancing from the southern edge of the clearing. He discharged another burst, causing them to retreat for cover. "We need to load Taylor now," Riley called over the intensifying rotor noise. "The patch will either hold or it won't, but we're running out of time." Mike secured his rifle and hurried to Taylor's side, lifting the injured soldier in a fireman's carry. The volume of enemy fire increased as he advanced towards the helicopter, bullets impacting the earth close by and ricocheting from the aircraft's armored underside. The key uncertainty lingered. Would Rex now enter the helicopter of his own accord, given the mechanical problem was resolved? Mike paused at the boarding ramp, glancing toward his canine partner. "Rex, come a bordo." The instant lingered as Rex stood at the ramp's edge. His focus remained on the engine compartment, the location of the repair. Without hesitation, the dog jumped into the cabin, indicating his approval of Riley's work. "He's good with it," Mike shouted to Riley as he secured Taylor on the cabin floor. "Let's go." The helicopter lifted shakily, its engine straining as Riley performed an emergency takeoff procedure. Mike took position at the open door, rifle ready as enemy fire continued to strike the aircraft's underside. A violent shudder ran through the aircraft as something struck the tail section. Alert signals illuminated Riley's instrument panel, yet she kept the aircraft steady, sharply turning eastward to create space from the attacking fighters. She relayed that the tail rotor had sustained damage, her hands swiftly adjusting the controls, managing to keep the helicopter operational, albeit precariously. A rapid detonation occurred on the hillside, an RPG having narrowly missed them. The blast's impact jolted the helicopter, causing a brief spin that Riley struggled to correct. "They possess substantial weaponry, we skate," Mike exclaimed, observing yet another combatant identified by the recognizable barrel of a rocket launcher. Another RPG whizzed past them, narrowly avoiding the primary rotor by a few inches before exploding in the night sky beyond. The helicopter vibrated once more, alarms sounding in the cockpit as systems neared their operational boundaries. As Mike reached for the radio, a frightening new sound pierced the helicopter's noise. A high-pitched whine emanated from the engine compartment, followed by a metallic snap that echoed through the airframe. Riley's eyes widened in alarm as warning indicators illuminated her panel. Fuel pressure was decreasing, the patch was failing. Riley swiftly manipulated the controls, making quick adjustments to preserve altitude. She rerouted fuel flow, deactivated non-essential systems, and reported we might reach Outpost Delta if the secondary lines remain functional. Rex proceeded to the cockpit entrance, his focus returning to the engine compartment. However, unlike his earlier vigilant stance, the dog now simply observed, his ears pricked forward, seemingly assessing the circumstances. "I think your dog is performing systems checks," Riley remarked with a tense laugh. "He keeps looking directly at the location of that fuel line." Another mechanical groan arose from the engine, accompanied by a brief increase in power. The aircraft stabilized, establishing a rhythm despite the damage and strained repairs. "I believe the epoxy is resealing as it warms," Riley stated, a cautious hope evident in her voice as she examined the instruments. "Pressure is stabilizing, it's not ideal, but potentially sufficient to get us home." Mike engaged the communication system. "Command, this is Bravo 6, we are airborne with one critically wounded. Helicopter sustained damage during extraction. We are requesting an emergency medical team at Outpost Delta, ETA 20 minutes. Static filled the airwaves as Colonel Westmore's voice cut through. His previous frustration vanished, replaced by a calm, professional demeanor. "Copy that, Bravo 6 medical team standing by, what's your aircraft status?" Captain Riley grasped the handset. "This is Captain Riley, aircraft operational but damaged. Tail rotor compromised, fuel system patched. We'll make it to Delta, but this bird won't fly again without major repairs." Westmore responded. "Understood. Priority is getting our people home safe." "Well done, Captain." "Excellent work, Staff Sergeant." The lights of Outpost Delta became visible on the horizon. This was a comforting sight following the difficult flight. Riley had kept the helicopter at a reduced altitude, carefully managing the damaged systems and maximizing the aircraft's capabilities. She announced, with noticeable relief, 5 minutes remaining, noting that a medical team should be ready. To Mike's surprise, Taylor's eyes opened briefly. The dog, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the engine noise, was right. Yes, he was, Mike agreed, signaling Rex to come closer. The Malinois approached carefully, seeming to understand the fragility of the wounded soldier. "He saved all of us." The helicopter descended toward the brightly lit landing pad, its movement sluggish, but controlled under Riley's expert handling. Upon landing, medical staff quickly moved forward with a stretcher, and ground crew positioned fire suppression equipment around the aircraft. Taylor was transferred to the medical team, with Mike providing a quick summary of his condition as preparations began to move him to the field hospital. As Taylor was transported, Riley exited the cockpit, her flight suit marked with hydraulic fluid and sweat. With exhaustion visible in her movements, but satisfaction in her eyes, she addressed Mike and Rex. "Your dog," she said, shaking her head in amazement, "just saved 3 lives in a $12 million aircraft." If that fuel line had ruptured at altitude, she trailed off, leaving the implications clear to both of them. Colonel Westmore then approached from the command center, his expression unreadable as he stopped before them. A brief, tense silence fell as Mike prepared for the expected rebuke. Unexpectedly, Westmore offered his hand. "That was some of the finest judgment I've seen in 20 years of command, Sergeant Connors," he said, astonishing both Mike and Riley. Prioritizing his canine partner over direct orders demonstrated courage. He then knelt before Rex, who displayed impeccable military bearing, even after the challenges of the extended mission. Regarding this soldier, Westmore stated, with evident respect in his voice, "I believe there's a stake in the officer's mess bearing his name." Following Westmore's departure, Riley addressed Mike. "I've been flying for 12 years, she said softly, "and never once questioned my pre-flight checks or the maintenance team's work. If your dog hadn't stopped us," she shook her head, unable to finish the thought. "That's why we trust them," Mike responded briefly. Despite potential failures in technology, established procedures, and even directives, they still observe what remains unseen. Rex rested against Mike's leg, exhibiting signs of tiredness now that the immediate threat had subsided. Considering that this dog had traversed miles of challenging terrain, identified a crucial mechanical fault, and rescued 3 lives during a single night, it appeared to be a deserved display of weariness. "Come on, boy," he said softly. "Let's go check on Taylor, and then I believe someone promised you chicken." Have you ever observed an animal perceiving danger that humans missed? The remarkable capabilities of certain animals, particularly trained military and police dogs, frequently determine the difference between life and death in crucial situations. Would you rely on your animal's instincts even if it required disregarding direct orders? Staff Sergeant Connors confronted this challenging decision, and his belief and his partner protected everyone on that mission. Share your opinions in the comments below. If this incredible story of canine heroism impressed you, please like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing tales. Click the bell icon to turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Share this video with friends who appreciate the extraordinary bond between handlers and their canine partners. Check out our previous canine stories appearing on your screen now. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, with a brand new video. A service dog barked continuously at a stroller in a busy mall. The mother became angry, security was summoned, and shoppers grew frustrated. But when the blanket was finally removed, what they witnessed moved the entire crowd to tears. Before we begin today's story, please leave a comment below indicating your location. And if you enjoy heartwarming stories about police dogs like this one, remember to subscribe. Prepare for what's about to unfold. The Westfield Shopping Center was filled with the usual weekend shopping activity. Families with strollers filled with bags, teenagers gathered around the food court, and a continuous blend of 1,000 conversations filled the space under the large glass ceiling. Afternoon sunlight shone through the skylights, creating warm areas on the polished tile floors as shoppers moved through the busy walkways between stores. Jessica Winters navigated the Saturday crowd with a practiced and efficient manner, her steps deliberate and measured. Beside her walked Echo, a Belgian Malinois wearing a professional red service vest with medical alert patches. Unlike the hurried shoppers who bumped shoulders and moved around each other, Echo moved with military precision, maintaining a perfect heel position despite the chaos, his attentive brown eyes occasionally glancing up at Jessica's face to check her status. "Excuse me, please," Jessica said as they moved past a group of teenagers who had stopped suddenly to take selfies in front of a clothing display. She kept her right hand lightly on Echo's specialized mobility harness, not because she required the physical support that day, but because the connection helped her feel stable amidst the overwhelming sights and sounds of the mall. The holiday decorations had already been put up, even though Thanksgiving was still 2 weeks away. Large silver and red decorations were suspended from the ceiling, and artificial pine garlands adorned the railings of the second-floor walkways. A faint piano version of Winter Wonderland played from afar, struggling to be heard over the noise of the crowd, the sounds of conversations, squeaking stroller wheels, and periodic announcements from the mall's public address system. Jessica glanced at her watch. It was 2:17 p.m. She had planned this trip carefully, arriving after the lunch rush but before the evening crowd descended. Her mental checklist was almost finished. New running shoes, the birthday gift for her niece, and one more stop at the bookstore to pick up the novel her book club was reading next. Then she could return to the quiet sanctuary of her apartment before the familiar tension in her shoulders escalated into a full-blown anxiety attack. Echo stayed calm and composed, his training clearly visible in his deliberate actions. He didn't behave like typical dogs who might investigate spilled food or react to appealing smells. Instead, he concentrated entirely on Jessica and any possible dangers to her safety. When a young child unexpectedly cried at a store called Toyland, Echo quickly assessed Jessica's response, prepared to offer deep pressure therapy should the noise upset her. Fortunately, this was a positive day. Jessica reacted with a slight flinch, then proceeded walking with a deep breath. The central court of the mall appeared before them, a circular space featuring a decorative fountain and benches for weary shoppers to rest. Jessica guided them toward the quieter path along the perimeter, avoiding the congested group of people observing a weekend product demonstration. Echo modified his speed seamlessly, guiding their path as though he and Jessica functioned as one unit within the crowd, their synchronicity stemming from countless hours of shared experience. Jessica had not always required Echo's presence. 5 years ago, she was Staff Sergeant Jessica Winters, a combat medic with the 4th Infantry Division, recognized for maintaining remarkable composure amidst the most severe mass casualty events. She had treated wounded soldiers under fire, stabilized blast injuries in helicopters, and once performed an emergency airway procedure during a sandstorm with almost zero visibility. Her commanding officers had described her as unshakable. Then occurred the roadside bomb outside Kandahar. Jessica had been the first to respond, treating 3 critically wounded soldiers while awaiting medevac. She had rescued all 3, but the 4th, her closest friend on the deployment, had died despite her desperate efforts. The consequences were stark: traumatic brain injury, shrapnel wounds to her left leg, and the unseen wounds of PTSD that ultimately proved more debilitating than her physical injuries. Returning to civilian life had become a minefield of triggers. Crowds, sudden noises, certain smells that instantly transported her back to the worst moments of her service. She explored therapy, medication, and support groups, but none provided complete relief until the VA's service dog program paired her with Echo 3 years ago. Echo was a unique service dog. This Belgian Malinois had been removed from a military working dog program, not due to a lack of skill, but because of his gentle nature, a characteristic that made him ideally suited for medical alert duties. His specialized training encompassed recognizing the minute biochemical alterations that foreshadow Jessica's panic attacks and seizures, a complication stemming from her TBI that occurred infrequently but posed a significant risk. "He is observing your body chemistry," the trainer had clarified during their placement. "Variations in your respiration, minuscule perspiration, and even alterations in your walk that you won't perceive deliberately. Echo will provide a warning before you are even aware of an issue." Their bond had developed past the boundaries of training. Echo possessed a remarkable skill in evaluating risks in Jessica's surroundings, differentiating between minor anxieties and real threats. He would position his body to shield Jessica from anything potentially triggering, whether approaching strangers or sudden movements, while largely remaining unnoticed during everyday interactions. Above all, Echo had restored Jessica's independence. Prior to this, she had rarely left her apartment, neglecting medical appointments and withdrawing from friends and family. Currently, she volunteers twice weekly at the VA hospital, has restarted her nursing education, and can navigate public spaces like this mall, still challenging but achievable with Echo's consistent support and alerting abilities. Many people didn't realize that beneath Echo's calm professional appearance lay a dog capable of detecting incredibly small chemical shifts, changes undetectable by human senses or medical instruments. His alerts stemmed not only from excellent training, but also from a complex biological detection system combined with steadfast loyalty. Jessica directed Echo towards the central court fountain, intending to cross over to reach the bookstore on the opposite side. As they walked past a row of benches near the fountain, Echo's demeanor shifted, his ears pricked forward, his head lifted slightly higher, and his gait lost its fluid rhythm for a brief moment. Jessica noticed it instantly, having spent 3 years together. Even the slightest changes in Echo's behavior registered like alarm bells. "What is it, buddy?" she murmured, scanning the area for potential triggers. Echo's attention had fixed on something ahead and to their right. Jessica's attention followed his gaze to a navy blue stroller situated next to a bench. A woman, seemingly in her 30s and with dark hair styled in a loose bun, was organizing shopping bags nearby. The baby in the stroller seemed to be sleeping calmly under a thin blanket featuring cartoon elephants. Jessica softly adjusted Echo's harness, trying to get his attention. "Come on, focus." However, instead of following her instruction, Echo's body became even more rigid. A soft whine came from him, a sound Jessica had seldom heard from her well-trained service dog. Echo moved closer to the stroller, abandoning his heel position for the first time in public that Jessica could recall. "Echo, heel," Jessica instructed more sternly, feeling a blush rise on her cheeks as a nearby elderly couple looked in their direction. Service dogs were meant to be unobtrusive in public spaces. That was the expectation. Echo had never deviated from protocol in this way before. The dog obeyed with evident hesitation, returning to her side while still watching the stroller. After 3 more steps, Echo stopped abruptly, firmly placing his feet and declining to budge from the stroller's line of sight. "Is something the matter with your dog?" the mother inquired, observing Echo's focused attention. Her voice carried a trace of irritation as she looked between her shopping bags and the service dog. "I'm sorry," Jessica started, but Echo interrupted her apology with a quick, forceful bark that resonated across the central court. People shopping turned towards the sound, their faces showing a mix of curiosity and disapproval. "Control your dog, please," the mother stated, her annoyance now clear. "You're frightening my baby." However, the baby hadn't moved at the loud bark, a detail that Jessica's training immediately recognized as odd. Typically, sleeping infants would react with a start to such a sound. Echo barked once more, then again, his barks becoming increasingly urgent. It wasn't aggression. Jessica understood Echo's behaviors completely. It was an alert, mirroring the pattern he exhibited when sensing a potential medical crisis. "Ma'am, I believe," Jessica began, but the mother interrupted her. "Service dogs shouldn't bark in public," the woman retorted, rising and moving defensively toward her stroller. "You need to leave." 2 mall security guards, both wearing navy blue uniforms, moved towards the disturbance. The taller guard, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, and a name tag identifying him as Wilson, spoke to Jessica. "Ma'am, we've received reports of your dog causing a disturbance for shoppers. Is everything all right?" Echo continued to bark, pulling towards the stroller with unusual focus. Jessica felt as though many people were watching her, judging, and presuming she lacked control over her service dog. The demands to apologize and depart were intense, yet Echo's actions conveyed a contrasting message, one that years of collaboration had shown her to be reliable in interpreting. "My service dog is medically trained," Jessica stated, working to maintain a composed tone. "He is specifically alerting to something concerning regarding that baby. This isn't typical behavior for him." The second security guard, a younger woman with her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, approached the mother. "Ma'am, would you please check on your child, just to be cautious?" "This is absurd," the mother protested. "She's fine. Simply taking her afternoon nap. I'm only shopping for less than an hour." Wilson frowned, visibly uneasy with the circumstances. "Ma'am," he addressed Jessica, "service animals are not permitted to be disruptive in public spaces. Mall policy dictates that." "I'm aware of mall policy," Jessica responded, her voice revealing the influence of her military training. Echo wasn't issuing this alert arbitrarily. He was detecting a medically significant issue. Echo had now activated his complete medical alert sequence, sitting stiffly, vocalizing with a characteristic 3 barks, then pawing the ground. This was the same pattern he exhibited when identifying Jessica's rare seizures in advance, a behavior that had prevented serious injury on multiple occasions. "Look," Jessica stated, referencing her medical experience, "I served as a combat medic." Echo is programmed to recognize specific medical crises. There's an issue with that baby, and each moment we spend debating could be critical. Jessica initially encountered Echo on a rainy Tuesday at the Patriot Service Dogs Training Center in Colorado, recently completing intensive therapy and still using a cane for her left leg. She initially doubted a dog could achieve what medication and counseling had not. Instead of the warm welcome Jessica anticipated, Echo approached her cautiously, deliberately sniffing her hands, her legs, and her breath. He then settled directly in front of her, his eyes fixed on her face as if committing every detail to memory. The turning point in their partnership occurred 3 months into their training. Their initial period had presented difficulties. Jessica's fluctuating symptoms required Echo to identify patterns that even medical devices sometimes failed to detect. The team utilized scent samples gathered during Jessica's pre-seizure states, anxiety attacks, and normal days to train Echo to distinguish between them. Subsequently, one evening, while Jessica was having coffee with her roommate, Echo abruptly initiated his alert behavior, remaining rigid, emitting 3 distinct barks, then pawing the ground. Jessica felt well and initially attributed it to a training mistake. "Echo, settle," she commanded, Instead of following instructions, Echo had turned to her roommate, Diane, repeating the alert pattern with increasing urgency. Maybe he needs to go out? Diane suggested, rising. She had taken 2 steps when she collapsed to the floor. Paramedics later confirmed she had experienced a dangerous blood sugar crash that could have resulted in a coma if she had been alone. Echo hadn't been alerting for Jessica at all. He recognized Diane's declining glucose levels, a condition she hadn't received a diagnosis for at that time. Following that day, Jessica's faith in Echo became unwavering. Whenever he provided an alert, she responded, irrespective of whether she experienced any symptoms herself. That established history of trust is what provided Jessica with the assurance to maintain her position now. Although met with skeptical looks and the mother's initial hesitation, Echo had gained her confidence through demonstrated dependability, and she was committed to supporting his warning, regardless of any awkwardness. A small group of people had assembled, whispering amongst themselves. An older woman approached. Perhaps you should examine the baby, dear. It's better to be cautious. The mother's certainty lessened a little as she looked at her child, who remained perfectly still. She claimed to be a deep sleeper, but a note of doubt entered her voice. Your baby hasn't reacted to any sounds, Jessica remarked gently. Not even a flinch at Echo's barking. That wasn't typical behavior for an infant. The mother's face changed as she processed this. She turned to the stroller, her shoulders showing strain. Please, please, Jessica said, her voice becoming more gentle. Echo has never been incorrect about a medical alert. Not in 3 years. My concern for your daughter prompted my request. The security guards looked at each other, appearing uncertain about the appropriate procedure for this uncommon circumstance. Wilson approached the stroller. Ma'am, may we briefly examine the situation? He asked. Then everyone can resume their activities. The mother paused, then agreed, moving towards the stroller. Very well. I'll demonstrate that she is simply sleeping, and then I anticipate an apology. Jessica remained behind, ensuring Echo stayed calm as the mother bent over the stroller and carefully pulled back the blanket with the elephant design. The woman's annoyed look quickly changed, and color left her face. Madison, she said, her voice growing louder. When the baby didn't react, she touched her daughter's cheek. Madison, wake up, baby. The security guard stepped forward instantly as the mother's voice rose to panic. She's not waking up. Tears streamed down her face as she desperately unfastened the stroller's buckles. If something's wrong, please help. Wilson quickly radioed for medical help, and his partner assisted the mother in lifting the unresponsive infant from the stroller. The baby's lips were slightly bluish, and while her chest rose with shallow breaths, she didn't respond to her mother's increasingly frantic efforts to rouse her. I'm a former combat medic, Jessica stated, stepping forward with composure. Can I assist while we await medical personnel? The mother nodded vigorously, tears running down her face as Jessica drew near. Echo remained calm, his earlier urgent alerting now replaced by watchful observation. Jessica assessed the baby's vital signs with practiced skill. She is breathing, but it's shallow. Pulse is detectable but weak. Jessica turned to the mother. Has Madison been unwell recently? Are there any existing medical concerns? No, nothing, the mother responded, stammering. During her routine checkup last week, everything was perfect. She simply fell asleep while shopping. An older man then approached from the assembled group. I'm Dr. Brenner, a pediatrician, he stated. May I examine her? With the mother's consent, the doctor rapidly assessed the infant. Pupils are responsive but sluggish, he observed. Temperature appears normal. He turned to Jessica and spoke softly. This looks neurological. How long has she been unresponsive? I don't know, the mother cried. She fell asleep approximately 40 minutes ago. She typically sleeps soundly during shopping trips. The movement of the stroller. Her voice faltered as the realization struck her. Oh God, has she been like this the entire time? I believed she was simply sleeping. Mall medical staff arrived with a first aid kit and oxygen. Shortly after, paramedics navigated the crowd with a gurney and pediatric medical equipment. Service dogs signaled to the baby. Dr. Brenner briefed the paramedics. The infant is unresponsive, but breathing. Possible neurological event is suspected. As the paramedics commenced their assessment, the lead EMT observed Echo, a Belgian Malinois medical alert dog. These dogs are remarkable scent detectors. Last year, we had one alert to a carbon monoxide victim who exhibited no visible symptoms. Their olfactory capabilities are extraordinary, Dr. Brenner stated, watching Echo with renewed respect. Certain studies indicate they can identify molecular changes at concentrations as low as parts per trillion. Finding it is comparable to locating a single drop of blood within 20 Olympic swimming pools. The medical uses are still being explored, especially for illnesses where early diagnosis significantly enhances results. Ramirez nodded as he secured a pulse oximeter to Madison's small finger. He had observed dogs detecting seizures prior to clinical signs, identifying malignancies before scans could, and even forecasting cardiac events. This little one is lucky that you and your partner were present today. Amber Parker, holding her daughter's hand, whispered, "Your dog knew. How could he possibly know when I didn't?" The paramedics responded with practice speed, securing the infant to the pediatric backboard and connecting monitoring devices. Paramedic Ramirez examined the readings, his expression concerned. "Oxygen saturation is lower than I'd like," he observed, placing a small oxygen mask over Madison's face. "These readings indicate potential seizure activity, though without convulsions. We are considering the possibility of absence seizures or a postictal state." "What does that mean? Will she be all right?" Amber asked, holding her daughter's hand. "We need to transfer her to Children's Hospital for a definitive diagnosis," Ramirez stated. "Fortunately, we are identifying this early, preventing potential oxygen deprivation that could cause harm." While a female paramedic was rechecking Madison's vital signs, she paused, moving closer to observe something. "Ms. Parker, has Madison received any medications recently?" the paramedic inquired. "No, none," Amber replied. "She has never taken medication." The paramedic indicated faint markings on the inner side of Madison's elbow. "These appear to be injection sites, but they are very small, the type we sometimes see with specific medical tests." Amber stated, with evident confusion, that the only injection her child had received was for routine vaccinations during the checkup last week. Dr. Brenner examined the marks and frowned. He noted that these were more recent than a week ago and did not align with typical vaccination injections. Echo immediately became alert, focusing intently on the diaper bag hanging from the stroller handle. Jessica recognized this particular behavior. Echo had identified something significant. "Ma'am," Jessica said cautiously, "would you mind if we examined Madison's diaper bag? Echo is signaling something within." Amber agreed promptly. Any prior doubts disappeared. Naturally, anything that could assist. Security Officer Wilson took the bag, and Jessica directed Echo through a methodical scent examination. The dog quickly pinpointed a side pocket, persistently nudging it with his nose, employing the method he uses for identifying substances. Within the pocket, a small medicine bottle was discovered, labeled as infant acetaminophen, though the security seal was broken and the bottle was only half full. "I didn't place that there," Amber stated, her face growing paler. "That's not our brand, and Madison hasn't required any pain medication." Ramirez carefully placed the bottle in an evidence bag. "We'll have this analyzed at the hospital. It's possible it contains another substance or has been altered." The second paramedic spoke with urgency. "Madison's oxygen levels are decreasing. Immediate transport is required." As preparations began to move Madison, Echo whimpered gently and rested his head against Jessica's leg. This was his way of indicating that his task was complete. He had identified the underlying issue well before human observation of the symptoms, potentially averting a significantly more severe outcome. "Your dog is remarkable," Dr. Brenner told Jessica as the paramedics began moving the gurney. "For 30 years, I have worked in pediatrics, and I observed no outward signs of distress in that child." Yet, he recognized the situation instantly. Amber, accompanying the gurney, glanced back at Jessica. "Thank you," she said, tears flowing down her face. "I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. If you hadn't insisted." She was unable to complete the sentence. "Thank Echo," Jessica responded quietly. "He is the hero here." The central court had been converted into a temporary command center. Police officers arrived soon after Madison was transported, establishing a perimeter around the stroller. A bottle from the diaper bag was now considered evidence in what the lead detective described as a possible instance of intentional drugging. Echo remained composed beside Jessica as she provided her statement to Detective Portman, a woman with a serious expression and kind eyes who documented every aspect of Echo's warning actions with considerable interest. According to Portman, the dog identified a problem with the child prior to any outward signs of illness. Jessica corroborated this, confirming that Echo possesses specialized scent detection training for medical emergencies. He is capable of identifying chemical alterations within the body that signify specific medical occurrences. Jessica further stated that Echo specifically indicated the diaper bag after the child received treatment. She explained that he exhibits distinct alert patterns depending on the circumstances. His actions concerning the bag indicate he perceived a substance present, rather than solely a medical issue. Portman added another notation. Ms. Parker stated the baby had a checkup last week. We are investigating who may have accessed the child or her belongings since that time. Wilson arrived accompanied by the mall manager, a tense woman wearing a charcoal suit, who identified herself as Diane Reynolds. Ms. Winters, Reynolds stated, I want to express my sincere gratitude to you and your service dog for your actions today. Our security team will be reviewing our protocols concerning service animal alerts. She looked at Wilson, who appeared suitably concerned. We recognize there are some areas where we need to improve our training. Echo was simply performing his trained tasks, Jessica responded. Wilson added, the hospital contacted us with an update. The baby is showing signs of stabilization. Medical tests were underway, but the doctor mentioned that a further delay in treatment could have had serious consequences, then stopped speaking, leaving the meaning unstated. A young woman who had been shopping in the vicinity approached cautiously. I filmed what occurred using my phone, she stated. I didn't mean to be odd, but my brother is applying to service dog programs, and I wish to demonstrate how they function in public settings. She then asked if the footage would be beneficial to the police. Detective Portman promptly collected the woman's contact details. That could be extremely valuable evidence, thank you. As the crowd gradually dispersed, an elderly man approached Jessica. Young lady, I want you to know I've contacted the local news. People need to hear about this, not just about the unfortunate situation with the baby, but about the incredible work service dogs like yours perform. Jessica experienced a moment of worry regarding potential media coverage, but Echo instinctively leaned against her leg, offering the calming pressure that helped manage her nervous system. She inhaled deeply, concentrating on the most important aspects. Madison was undergoing treatment, an inquiry was in progress, and Echo had performed as he was trained. The police concluded securing the area while Jessica and Echo were readying to depart. Officer Wilson approached them at the mall entrance. He offered a sincere apology to both of us. 20 years in security and I've never seen anything like what your dog did today, he said. If we'd followed protocol and asked you to leave, he shook his head, expressing gratitude for your resolve. As Jessica and Echo walked through the parking lot toward her car, the adrenaline from the incident began to fade, leaving her physically drained but mentally clear. She stopped beside her SUV, kneeling down to bring herself eye level with her partner. You did good, buddy, she whispered, gently stroking Echo's face and neck. Really good. Echo's perceptive eyes stayed focused on hers, his expression reflecting complete satisfaction now that his task was finished. He moved closer, touching his forehead against Jessica's in the familiar gesture they frequently shared following challenging situations. Jessica reflected on how she almost questioned Echo due to societal expectations, the looks, the security personnel, the mother's initial displeasure. Apologizing and leaving would have been simpler, attributing Echo's behavior to a temporary lapse. The pressure of public opinion had nearly eclipsed years of collaboration and mutual trust, but Echo remained unwavering, continuing until someone acknowledged his perspective. His conviction prevented a child from a situation paramedics believed could have been intentional drugging. The realization sent a shiver down Jessica's spine, even under the warmth of the afternoon sun. As Jessica started the engine, a text from her VA counselor appeared on her phone. It referenced the news alert about a service dog saving a baby at Westfield. Could that have been Echo and her? The counselor suggested she call if she needed support following the event. News spread rapidly. By tomorrow, reporters would likely be calling, potentially requesting interviews. Ordinarily, this would cause a surge of anxiety, but surprisingly, it felt different this time. Sharing their experiences might help people recognize the crucial role service dogs play, not only in assisting their handlers, but also in safeguarding the broader community. Echo relaxed into his seat, his alert stance softening into a calm watchfulness, ever prepared but no longer sensing immediate threats. Jessica met his look in the rearview mirror, feeling a wave of thankfulness for this remarkable animal who had profoundly changed her life and now had protected someone else. Believe in your dog. This was the initial instruction in service dog training, the basis for all subsequent commands. Recent events had demonstrated why this belief wasn't merely training protocol, but significant insight. Occasionally, a companion could detect things beyond human perception and human assessment. Occasionally, trust meant the difference between a disaster and a fortunate outcome. Have you ever observed an instance where an animal detected something humans entirely overlooked? What accounts for some animals' remarkable ability to sense medical emergencies even before symptoms are apparent? Would you have believed a service dog's alert regarding a stranger's baby, despite the potential for embarrassment? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories of heroic service animals. Click the bell icon to receive notifications when we upload new videos each week. Please share this video with friends and family who value the special connection between people and their service animals. Watch our previous stories about canine heroes now, and tune in tomorrow at the same time for another inspiring story you won't want to miss.